In this episode of the Butt Chronicles, we take a look at Beavis and Butt-Head, episode 35, Incognito.
Welcome to Industrial Industries World Radio's The Butt Chronicles.
You said welcome.
Oh God.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and butt munches alike. Welcome to the Butt Chronicles, your audio guide to everything Beavis and Butt-Head. And I'm your host, DJ Glowing Ice. And today we're taking a look at episode 35 of Beavis and Butt-Head, titled Incognito. It first aired on MTV on September 8th, 1993. That's all we need to know for now. So what happens with Beavis and Butt-Head in Incognito? Well, let's check it out. The episode starts at Highland High School inside Mr. Van Driesen's class. As Beavis and Butt-Head sit in the back of the class in their desks, their heads are tilted forward as they're sleeping and snoring. Up in the front of the class, we see Mr. Van Driesen standing in front of his desk. Van Driesen says, "Okay, class, this might take a while to explain, but since every precious breath we breathe comes via this reaction, I think it's worthwhile that I show you the process that produces photosynthesis. Of course you will not be tested on this." Upon hearing this, the other students in the classroom yell and cheer loudly. All of the noises wake up Butt-Head, and Butt-Head asks Daria, who's sitting in front of him, what's going on. Daria turns to Butt-Head and said, "This won't be on the test." "What test?" Daria sighs and looks back towards the front of the classroom. We then see Beavis sitting at his desk with a fork with food stuck to it hanging halfway off of his desk. Beavis then hits the end of the fork, which is then sent flying towards Butt-Head, and then the fork sticks into Butt-Head's forehead. Butt-Head, now bleeding from the fork in his head, says, "Ugh." "Direct hit, tail gunner Beavis." Butt-Head starts playing with it while it's stuck in his head, and then he pulls it out. Beavis tells Butt-Head to try it. Butt-Head sets the fork up, ready to launch, and swiping his hand down onto the fork, sends the fork flying again. This time it flies forward into the group of classmates in front of them. The fork flies and brushes right by Earl. Earl's another student in the class with a shaved head, a goatee for facial hair, who wears a leather jacket with a white t-shirt underneath. Earl looks surprised as the fork flies past him, and it falls to the ground. Sorry, Earl," says Butt-Head. Cut back to Earl, who is now looking pissed off as he pulls his leather jacket open, displaying a handgun he has tucked into his pants. Beavis and Butt-Head, sitting in their desks, now look scared, and Butt-Head says, uh-oh. Cut to Beavis and Butt-Head at their house as the boys are sitting on their couch. "Earl sure was pissed," says Butt-Head, as both the boys watch a crime show on the TV. On the show, a cop is talking to another guy who says he'll get torn apart as soon as he leaves the station. The man, who is scared, asks the cop what his other option is, and he's told that he should join the witness protection program. This is where he'd have to change his appearance and everything about him in order to survive. The boys then get thought bubbles above their heads with light bulbs inside of them. Next, we see a downward shot of Beavis and Butt-Head's bathroom. Their tub in the bathroom has a torn-up yellowish-orange shower curtain, holes and cracks in the walls, and the mirror is broken in a spot. Beavis and Butt-Head are looking into the mirror that's above the sink. Both of the boys have sunglasses on, and Beavis is wearing a small-brimmed tan hat, as Butt-Head's wearing a dark green baseball cap. "Hey, Butt-Head, they'll never know who we are." "Shut up. My name's not Butt-Head anymore." "Oh yeah, right, bunghead." Butt-Head laughs and says, "Let's go, crevice, and remember," Butt-Head changes his voice, "we are not from here." This is gonna be cool. Next, we see an outside shot of Highland High School as the bell rings. Inside Mr. Van Driesen's class, the boys are sitting in their desks with their disguises on. Van Driesen up front reads off the attendance sheet. "Andrews? Here. Beavis? Butthead? Hey guys, why aren't you answering? Cut to seeing the boys sitting at their desks, and Butthead says, Why would we answer?
Yeah, you did not call our names,
adds Beavis. Guys, I clearly said Beavis and Butt-Head.
We are not them,
Beavis replies.
I'm Bunghead.
He's Crevice.
We are extra strange students.
Oh, exchange students, huh? And where are you boys from? Asks Mr. Van Driesen.
Somewhere else.
The boys then look towards Earl, and Earl's giving them a strange and threatening look. Van Driesen plays along with Beavis and Butt-Head's act and welcomes them to his classroom in Spanish. He then starts drawing out the photosynthetic process on the chalkboard. We then see Earl from the boys' point of view as he turns around, opens his jacket to show the gun he has, and says, Nice try, beaver and butt plug. Looking up at the front, as we see Van Driesen write the words bird in sky on the board, a stray bullet comes from the back of the classroom and hits the blackboard, putting a hole in it. Van Driesen, looking scared, and then angrily, he says, I hope that shot didn't come from in here. Earl, that shot didn't come from your gun by any chance, did it? Earl defends himself and says, Nice try, chump. I didn't shoot. Look. Earl then holds up his hand and continues, No powder burns. He then holds his gun up and says, Run a ballistics check. I'm clean. Beavis backs up Earl by saying,
He didn't fire. Fire, fire, fire.
Van Driesen says, Now Earl, is brandishing a weapon any way to welcome visiting scholars from distant shores? I don't think so. Cut to Daria, looking out the back window of the classroom, as there's broken glass where the bullet entered. There's the kid, Daria says, as she points out of the window. Earl gets up and walks to the window and yells,
Hey, punk! You shooting at me?
Now looking up at the classroom window from outside the school, Earl, Daria, Beavis and Butt-Head, and a couple other students are looking outside. Earl then yells,
You shooting at me, punk?
And then he knocks out more glass from the window with his arm, creating a larger hole. Earl shoves his gun out the window and shoots a bullet into the air.
Mr. Van Driesen don't like people firing at him when he's diagramming photosynthesis.
Looking at Earl and Daria back inside the classroom by the window, Daria says to Earl, Earl, you don't like Mondays, huh? Earl turns to Daria and says,
I don't like any day.
Back to a shot looking at the window from outside, we see and hear students cheering Earl's name as Van Driesen walks up and looks out the hole in the window and says, Well, I guess he won't be disrupting this classroom anymore. Not running away from warning shots he won't, Daria says.
Heh, what a wuss,
says Beavis. Okay, come on class, back to your seats. Everyone sits back down at their desks, and Earl, standing, has his gun exposed in his pants. Earl, Mr. Van Driesen says, as he pulls open a drawer in his teacher's desk. Earl, with his gun in his hand, looks sad and says, Oh man. He then walks up to Van Driesen at his desk to turn his gun in. Now you can get it back at the end of the term. Earl drops the gun into the drawer that's filled with other things like 2 other guns, an adult magazine, sticks of TNT, brass knuckles, and a grenade. As the gun falls into the drawer, it goes off and fires a round. The safety. Earl, put on the safety, Van Driesen passingly advises Earl.
I'm sorry, Mr. Van Driesen.
Earl cowardly apologizes, and then walks back to his desk and sits down. Earl then turns behind him to Beavis and Butt-Head and says, Thanks for the alibi earlier. You could have set me up. I will let you live. And then turns around to face the front. Butt-Head takes off his disguise and tells Earl that it was them the whole time.
Yeah, we were in burrito,
adds Beavis, as he then takes off his disguise as well. And then the boys laugh as they sit at their desks. And that's the end of Beavis and Butt-Head in Incognito. Now let's check out the music videos. First music video is Down with the King by Run DMC, and the boys think they're cool and they dance to it in their room. Butthead says, "This is a deaf jam. These guys are deaf."
Whoa, you mean like they can't hear?
Butthead says no, and then he laughs at Beavis. Butthead then asks Beavis if he's down with the king, and Beavis asks,
Are they talking about Don King?
"No, dumbass, he's talking about Burger King." Later on in the video, as a member of the group raps about how he went to college, Butthead says, "Whoa, college sucks."
Yeah, I don't like knowledge either,
adds Beavis. Next music video is Sweating Bullets by Megadeth, and Butthead tells Beavis that the singer of Megadeth, Dave Mustaine, talks like him.
He doesn't talk like me.
He sorta talks like you. He just doesn't sound as much like a wuss as you do.
Shut up, Butthead.
The boys talk about jelly, and Beavis says strawberry is cool. Butthead asks if Dave Mustaine was raised by wolves. Beavis says,
Yeah, wolves are cool.
Beavis continues,
If you were raised by wolves, you could like go take a leak in the forest, and you could like take a dump too, and you could like kill sheep and stuff.
Butthead replies, "You could take a dump in the woods even if you weren't raised by wolves, Beavis." Then the last music video is Los Angeles by Frank Black. At first, Butthead makes fun of how the singer sounds, and then the boys think it's cool after they rock. Butthead says that if he had a driver's license, he'd run over some light bulbs. Beavis suggests that in the meantime, they should stomp on some light bulbs. That's the music videos. Now let's get into the fun facts. Okay, so this episode marks the first appearance of the character Earl. And Earl is a fellow student in Beavis and Butt-Head's class. He's 16 years old, and he's more of the bad boy type. He's always seen wearing a leather jacket, shaved head. In further episodes in the future, when we just span across the entire classroom of Van Driesens, you will see Earl more than likely looking at dirty magazines and opening up a centerfold. So that's basically Earl, and Earl was voiced by voice actor Dean Julian. This episode wound up being pulled after its first few airings during MTV's run, and the reason for this is that it pertained to guns being inside of a school, which is a big no-no. Another censored and edited version of this episode is when Beavis says, "He did not fire, fire, fire." And because of the fire controversy later on in the year, an edited version of this episode has that line cut. This episode has never been officially available on any home video release, and Incognito is the 4th episode of Season 3 of Beavis and Butt-Head, and it's the 35th episode overall. And IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, gives Beavis and Butt-Head Incognito a 7.5 out of 10 rating. Now I'll give you my review. So I never seen this episode before, so this was fresh with me. Let's start off with the music videos this time around. So we had Megadeth talking about how you could take a dump out in the woods, and you could do that anyways, even if you weren't raised by wolves. That's just classic. I love that. That's my favorite. And Sweating Bullets by Megadeth was one of my favorite songs as a kid. It was probably my favorite song up until I was about 12, and then I discovered Rob Zombie. Sweating Bullets was a great music video, and yeah, it's good, solid, easy 3 music videos, in and out, boom, bam, boom, and then we got back into the episode. The episode itself, I kind of felt like this one was kind of boring to me. Like, yeah, I get it, Beavis and Butt-Head have this harebrained idea that if they just put on, sunglasses and a hat, they're never gonna, know that, they're scared of Earl. The story was kind of like, it was very, very loose and not really, and then on top of it all, the jokes and just the funny bits that could have been funny in there, most of it was just like more of a cool episode more than a funny episode. You know what I mean? Like, it was interesting to watch, but there wasn't much about it that I found really that funny. Earl is a very deep character, though. Believe it or not. I never really got into Earl that much to know what he was about. I think he was part of Todd's gang, which we'll get into Todd later, obviously. But Earl, he seems like on the verge of crying almost, and he really respects Mr. Van Driesen, which is very odd. He's the bad boy, and in class he's always messing around, but he does respect Van Driesen when someone shoots into the window, and he's defending him. And I think he sees Mr. Van Driesen as a father figure. So there could have been a lot more with Earl's character, I feel, but I think he wound up becoming more of an empty kind of just extra more than anything else. But it was good to see Earl, how this episode kind of revolved around his kind of deal and who he was as a person. But yeah, most of this just happened in the classroom, and I honestly felt like it fell a little flat. But like I said, it was still entertaining to watch. Not that funny, but it is Beavis and Butt-Head, so, anything Beavis and Butt-Head is way better than a lot of other things out there. I'd much rather watch this than a great episode of Friends or whatever. So I'm going to have to give Beavis and Butt-Head Incognito a 6 out of 10. It's a lot better than some episodes, but it's not as great as some other ones. So there we go. Beavis and Butt-Head Incognito gets a 6 out of 10.